Well, hello there, my fellow Flesh and Blood players, and hopefully soon to be Flesh and Blood players. I'm your friendly neighborhood Sloop Dude, and I want to talk to you about the three core sets in Flesh and Blood. I want to talk about Welcome to Rathe, Arcane Rising, and Monarch, and which one would best suit you, the new player, the person looking in. You want to buy a box, but you don't know where to start. So I want to go over the sets a little bit, tell you a little bit about them, what's in them, what you can expect to get, and hopefully help you pick one to buy. So, to start off, there's a couple things. The first is I will not be talking about Crucible of War for two reasons. The first is that there's only first edition available and it's very expensive and it's still about a month and a week or so away from us being able to get unlimited. Closer to its release, I will do a video talking about the set and whether it's worth it or not to buy it, kind of going over what's of interest in it, and so you can decide whether you want to spend your money on it. The other reason is it's a supplementary set. It's geared towards upgrading your decks rather than building them, and so it's not very good to have as your first set. You won't probably be able to build a deck or even something even remotely reasonably good from just this set. So that's going to be for another video. We're just going to talk about Welcome to Rathe, Arcane Rising, and Monarch. One other thing I need to mention is that the rarity system in Welcome to Rathe and Arcane Rising is different than in Monarch. So in the first two sets, you are on average going to pull 2 Majestics and 4 Super Rares in a box, as well as 1 in every 4 boxes will have a foil Majestic, and 1 in every 4 boxes will have the legendary equipment. So the legendary stays the same as in Monarch, but the Majestic pull rate is actually 5 to 6 a box and about 2 foil on average. And this is because they've removed Super Rares. They've removed that rarity altogether. It's just now all Majestics. The Fabled, however, remain across all boxes about an average of 1 in every 40 boxes. So, as cool as the Fableds are, don't buy a set for the Fabled. You are very, very, very unlikely to pull one. So, without further ado, I want to tell you a little bit about Welcome to Rathe. This is my personal favorite set, and it is the most simple, basic, easiest to grasp set in the entire game. It has the bare amount of abilities. It is just the starting set. Now that doesn't mean that there's not enough power in this set. In fact, it's one of the more powerful sets. Welcome to Rathe is just really, really good. It's really strong and you will not go wrong buying this. It has the 4 base classes: Guardian, Warrior, Ninja, and Brute. Each one has their own abilities. So, Dorinthia the Warrior, she basically attacks with her Dawnblade multiple times. You use attack reactions to kind of get in at your opponent, make it so they don't know how much to block with, because they know that if they block even with 6 or 9, you could potentially up that damage, or you could just let the attack fizzle and they've just wasted a bunch of defense. She's a very tricky one to face, and she's very, very good. Also very good for Blitz. Bravo, the Guardian, on the other hand, usually likes to sit back, gain some life, hunker down a little bit, prepare your next turn or two, and then have this massive, huge attack with something like a Crippling Crush for 11, and you really get into your opponent. He has the ability to give your attacks Dominate, and when you hit for 4 or more with most of your attacks, you get this extra ability to really cripple your opponent, and he's very fun to play. Ninja, on the other hand, does the exact opposite. Ninja decks just go off. Right? If you're playing Katsu, you're going to be playing a ton of combo cards, and you're just going to be chaining these attacks one after the other, really putting the pressure on your opponent. And it becomes really difficult to block a Ninja deck because you're just going to attack multiple times, and sometimes it's only going to be for small amounts of damage, like the Kadachi, for instance. It's 1 and 1, and it can get very difficult in the late game to block that damage. You don't want to waste an entire defense on it. So if you like really fast, aggressive decks that just keep pressure on the opponent, you would definitely like Ninja. And finally, we've got Brute. So Brute, Rhinar, has a lot of luck based around him. Okay, you have a lot of random discarding, you have a lot of rolling dice with the equipment, and you also have the Intimidate mechanic, which randomly rips cards out of your opponent's hands, banishes them for the turn, and they can't use them to defend. So he is kind of like Dominate. It kind of gets in on your opponent, kind of gets under their defenses or over their defenses, or quite literally just throws them out the window. When he intimidates your opponent, it's essentially the scene from Shrek where he says, "This is the part where you run away." That's Rhinar, essentially. So, now, as for some of the more generic cards in this set, you've got cards like Enlightened Strike, which to this day is still one of the best attack action cards, and it's very pricey. If you get lucky and pull one of these, you just got some good cash. I pulled a Rainbow Foil, which was pretty awesome, so that literally paid for more than that box when I opened it. You also have Fiendal Spring Tunic, and this card is one of the best equipment in the game. However, I want to say, if you're going for this equipment, keep in mind, are you playing Classic Constructed or Ultimate Pit Fight, or are you playing Blitz? Because in Blitz, the Tunic is not nearly as good as it is in Classic Constructed or Ultimate Pit Fight. You want the Tunic for games that are going to go long, and in Ultimate Pit Fight and Classic Constructed, you get that. In Blitz, you know, waiting 3 turns before you get any advantage out of it, except for blocking, obviously, but 3 turns before you really get to use its ability is just too long to wait. Sometimes the games are basically decided by then. The games can usually go very quick. So, keep that in mind. And then we've got some cheaper cards that are commons and rares, so you're going to get multiples of them that are also really good. You've got things like the potions, right? So you have Potion of Strength and Energy Potion. You have Sigil of Solace Red, which is one of my favorite cards. It gains you 3 life. It's just some extra life. When you're playing Blitz, this card can really save you. You've also got Sink Below, which is one of the best defense reactions in the game. There's honestly quite a lot in Welcome to Rathe to love and to build decks from. This set is, in my opinion, the best set to just start out and really build a collection and really start to learn the game. Okay, because it's the least complex, you have plenty of power, and everything in it is really cool. And you've got some really good generic cards to get. The Fabled in this set is Heart of Fiendal. Again, do not buy sets for the Fabled, and Heart of Fiendal is not even that great of a card. In fact, most of the Fableds, except maybe the Great Library of Solana, really aren't that great. They're okay. If you get them and you want to play them, go for it. But you don't really need them to play in your deck, so don't worry about that whatsoever. But if you pull one, hey, you just made several $100s out of your 1 box, so that's pretty cool. Next, I want to talk to you about Arcane Rising. This is the second set. This has the beautiful dash, and that's the only one that matters out of this set. No, that's not true. But if you are looking for a slightly more complex set, or you are looking for some interesting, different heroes, because your Welcome to Rathe is very classical fantasy heroes. Arcane Rising takes that up a notch. So you do have your classical wizard, for instance, but you also have really cool things like Runeblade. You have your generic ranger, but you also have mechanologist. So, Dash, the mechanologist. She likes to boost a lot of cards and keep doing a lot of little attacks. One great meme that I've seen for her is pew pew for 2. You use your pistol to attack multiple times using the induction chamber. I personally play Dash in Ultimate Pit Fight, and I love playing her. She's one of my favorite decks to play in that format because you can just really keep attacking on either side and putting pressure. She's a lot of fun. I love her, and I also get to play Tome of Fiendal in her, which is a very good card that is from Welcome to Rathe, actually. I just realized I didn't mention that in this take. I apologize. You also then have Kano, the wizard, who is very good in Blitz, and I think also good in Classic Constructed. He's just very good in general. Arcane damage is very hard to block. The no-rune equipment that comes in this set is played in pretty much any deck because of Kano. But Kano is basically a burn deck. He's throwing fireballs and lightning bolts all day, every day, and that's the deck. Just damage, damage, damage. He has a really cool ability that lets you play off the top of your deck, and if it's a non-attack action, which pretty much all of his cards are because it's arcane damage rather than, a physical attack, you get to play it at instant speed. So this deck is honestly very explosive, very fast, and it's really cool to play. He's really hard to play against sometimes, and sometimes you feel like you got screwed. Sometimes you just get burned for so much damage really quickly you didn't get to do a whole lot, but sometimes that's how the games go. Then we've got Ranger. So Azalea is unfortunately right now not the best hero, but she's a really cool hero. She's got a lot of really nifty things. She uses her bow to put arrows into the arsenal and then you shoot them out, and a lot of them have like detrimental effects on the opponent, so if they hit you get certain things like there's one that makes your opponents have to pay an extra resource for the first action, or the one that really hurts when like for when my friend uses it against me when I'm playing Dash. He uses the one that makes me only be able to take 1 action in a turn. And in a deck like Mechanologist, where you want to take 5, 6, 7 actions in a turn, that hurts a lot. That really sets you back. So Azalea is really, really cool. She's not the best, but just wait until a supplementary set comes out or more cards come out for Ranger, and she'll probably be much better. But she's still really cool, still really fun, and a lot of people love her. And finally, we've got Runeblade, which is probably one of the more popular heroes in Arcane Rising. So the Runeblade Viserai sets up rune chant tokens. It's basically an OTK deck. You want to build up rune chant tokens as you're playing, right? You start keeping them, you build them up, you get a whole bunch, and then you do an attack, and all of them pop. and each one deals 1 arcane damage to the opponent. So if you have like 8, 9, 10 of them, you attack them with something, and plus, he has attacks that get cheaper the more you have. So you basically get a free attack with an extra like 8, 9 damage on top of it, and you can just devastate your opponents if you build up enough. He is just devastating if you can't get the upper hand on him. So if you really like the idea of having a mixed attacker, you know, you've got the physical and arcane, and you can kind of build up and then do your big attack, or you can just keep chipping in damage. Viscera is a really good, like, flexible, kind of go with the flow. You can kind of play him in different ways, I guess, is you have a couple different options, and that's really, really cool. Now, in this set, for some of the generic cards, you have the Arcanite Skullcaps. This is the generic legendary. This card is fantastic, and it is very, very, very expensive, okay? It is probably the best generic helm equipment because it blocks for 3. It also has that arcane barrier 3, so if you're facing Kano and you know your life's going to be lower, although Kano does start at 15, so you have to wait a little bit, this can help you in that situation. So Arcanite Skullcap, if you pull it, you are golden. You paid for 2 boxes basically with this one card. You also have Command and Conquer. This is probably the most sought after card for competitive decks, for Blitz, Classic Constructed, whatever, even Ultimate Pit Fight. This card is phenomenal. If you pull it, you've almost paid for an entire box with just this card. It is really, really good. But again, like with Welcome to Rathe, you only have 2 Majestics in a set. And because you're competing with a lot of the class Majestics, it can be very hard to pull the Command and Conquer. But if you do, or if you're like my friend and gets lucky and pulls a regular and a rainbow foil, you're gonna be golden. You're gonna be smiling for the next 5 days, because that is just going to pay for more than the box. It's fantastic. I love that about this game, is you can pull really, really good expensive cards that are more than what your box cost. And I really think that's a valuable thing. You also have some really good generic cheap stuff too. Okay, so it's not just the expensive cards. Although another expensive card is Art of War. Before I forget, Art of War is another really good one if you're playing a lot of attack action cards. This can really, it's got 4 modes, it's very powerful, it's a very highly played card, not as expensive as like Enlightened Strike or Command and Conquer, but it's still really good. So if you pull one of those, you're also sitting pretty. But for some cheaper ones, some cheaper generics, you've got things like Fate Foreseen, which lets you opt. That's very good. And again, the Null Rune equipment is very key. Everybody wants to play the Null Rune because of Kano, or even Chane and Viscera with their arcane damage. So the Null Rune is very, very necessary. You've also got cards like Life for a Life, which is almost like Scar for a Scar from Welcome to Rathe, except it has a bit of a life gain aspect to it. You gain a little bit of life if it hits. So that's also a very good card. And then finally, the Fabled of this set is Eye of Ophidia. So this one is one of the better Fableds. It pitches and opts when you pitch, so you get that extra little ability. I had a guy use it in a Brute deck, a Rhinar deck against me in Blitz, and he took like a 10 card turn, or not even that, was more than that. He gained like 6 action points, drew like 5, 6 cards, and he just kept going and going and going. And the Eye of Ophidia was actually key in that. So if you really want to build nutso decks, you know, you might need it, but really, genuinely speaking, again, you don't need the Fableds for anything. But again, if you pull it, this is a very playable one. Like, it's good, it's decent. It's not like broken, but it is good. So if you pull it, you want to play it, by all means. And then finally, yes, finally, Monarch, the most recent set that came out. Again, if you've bought a Blitz deck for Monarch, buy this set. Don't buy Welcome to Rathe, don't buy Arcane Rising, just buy Monarch to upgrade your deck. This is where you will get your upgrades, okay? But that's pretty obvious. If you haven't bought a Blitz deck and you just want to buy a box, what can you expect to get? You can expect to get some really spicy goodness. Monarch is a fantastic set. It introduced the talent system. So all the heroes now have a light or shadow attribute to them. So you've got the Light Warrior Bolton, the Light Illusionist Prism. Oh, she's beautiful. You have the Shadow Brute Levia, I think it's Levia, and the Shadow Runeblade Chane. So, Bolton, he is a warrior. He likes to charge his hero's soul with the ability Charge. So you attack with a card, and each of them usually lets you take a card from your hand and put it into his soul. So you just tuck it underneath him. And then you can use these cards from his soul to give an attack, or any attack that has attack higher than its base. So if it's getting boosted, and his own ability lets you boost if your opponent's blocked with an attack action card, you can get rid of a card from his soul to give it go again. So basically, he likes to set up for a couple turns, and then just have these big explosive turns where you just attack a bunch of times and really use his soul to just keep getting in a ton of damage. He's really fun to play. And he's got a lot of different play styles. You can play Saber Bolton, you can play the Raiden Duskbane Bolton, and you can play the Hatchet Bolton. Like, there's just lots of options for him. He's really cool. Prism, on the other hand, aside from being one of the best looking cards, aside from being like the top tier waifu of this game, okay, Prism is really good in Classic Constructed, not as much in Blitz, but she's still really fun to play. She's got these Illusionist cards where you get these big attacks for really cheap, but if your opponent's blocked with cards 6 or more power, it automatically breaks the illusion. So if your opponents are strong enough, it breaks the illusion. But you do have some ways to get rid of that. There's an equipment, a generic basic equipment that will let you do that. And she also has the ability to create like these auras, not only as spectral shield tokens, but also play out auras that are just generic cards. And then there's Luminaris that lets you attack with them. Both weapons really let you attack with them. She's just really cool, and she's honestly really strong. Like, she's got a very good control type build. You know, she's very sturdy. Her attacks, again, if you can get through with those big attacks, you know, some decks really struggle against her. In fact, the meta right now has been shifting a little bit around Prism. You're starting to see people play cards like Command and Conquer more. You get cards like even Nourishing Emptiness people are running. I've even seen people just running generic like 6 attack cards that just pitch for 2 or 3 because they need something to block Prism with. So she's really warping the format, and she's really cool to play. And if you just want to play the top tier waifu, Prism is the one to play. Okay, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Play Prism. She is just beyond gorgeous. I love Prism. I love all the heroes, but I really love some more than others. And Prism, I love Prism. Then we get to Levia, whatever you want to say, Leviathan, some weird tentacle lady. She is pretty cool. She is a Shadow Brute, and she uses the Blood Debt mechanic, and she kind of gets rid of the Blood Debt mechanic. She also has a really cool weapon, the Hexagore, which my friend started using, and I really like that weapon. It attacks for 6, but it deals you damage based on the Blood Debt in your graveyard. You basically have to build up the Blood Debt, and then use her to get rid of it by discarding a card 6 or more, or banishing. I think it's banishing a card 6 or more. She's got all these really big attacks and really focuses on trying to get rid of that Blood Debt and discarding certain cards, and she can really hit you for a lot of devastating damage. Like, Levia really hits hard, like really hard. You can be taking a lot of damage in a turn, and she's a pretty beginner-friendly deck too, but just she is really cool. Her young art is very, very nice. The adult art is a little almost like horror-esque. It's very very tentacly. It's very like monster-ish. So if you're into that, she could be a very good option. And then finally, Chane. Arguably, not even arguably, he's probably the strongest hero from Monarch. Like, he's doing very well in Blitz and doing very well in Classic Constructed. Chane is amazing. You make these Soul Shackle tokens, and then every turn, for each Soul Shackle token you have, at the beginning of your turn, you banish that many cards. Okay? And he doesn't have a way to get rid of Blood Debt. So if you have Blood Debt cards in your graveyard, at the end of your turn, you are taking damage. But Chane can play those cards with Blood Debt from the graveyard. And so what Chane basically does is he builds up over a few turns, you build up those Soul Shackle tokens, you start banishing more and more cards, and then suddenly, you're in this phase of the game where the Chane player can block with most of the hand, maybe only keep 1 card, and as long as it's a blue pitch, they're fine. Their hand is in their banish zone, right? So their hand is basically double the size of yours, if not even more than double the size of yours. They only need cards for pitch in their hand, and then the cards they're going to play are from the graveyard. And if you let Chane continue building Soul Shackle tokens through the game, you're done for. You are done for. You need to either rush this deck down or really grind him out, because you can't really play, and by grind him out, I mean like grind him out of resources. You can't play the long game with Chane. Chane will beat you every single time, okay? This deck is nuts. I have not played it myself, but I've played against it, and I can tell you, it is ridiculous. And he is very, very strong. Just the simple fact that your hand is just pitch. You don't care. You go 1 or 2 cards, who cares? You block with most of your hand, and all you need is the pitch, because everything, you're going to get your cards to actually play on the start of your turn, which just is very, very strong. So if you want to build the strongest hero in Monarch, go for Chane. Now, as for the more generic cards, if I'm going to be quite honest with you, Monarch is a little lacking on the more generic stuff. It's not that it doesn't have it, but there's nothing, to me at least, right now that really jumps out as like, this is the really big card to be playing, because it really focuses on the talent system. So you have a lot more specific cards rather than ones that are more just generically good. But you still have some good generic cards. And my favorite personally is Nourishing Emptiness. This card in Dorinthia is ridiculous. I love this card in my Dorinthia deck. I just pulled a foil of it actually for Unlimited. Very happy about that. If you have no other attack actions in your graveyard, you attack for 6, dominate, and if it hits, you get an extra intelligence. You get to draw an extra card at the end of your turn. Dorinthia doesn't play any attack actions except for the 1 copy of Nourishing Emptiness, so you draw it and you're always going to have that dominate in the +1 intellect. It's such a good card. It's such a good card. You also have Exude Confidence, which is kind of that generic attack for 0, and you can pump it up, and it's also very hard to block. I put that in my Ira deck to test out, and that one I think is going to go up in the future. I think that's a very strong card, and it's pretty cheap right now, so if you want copies, get them now while it's cheap. You also have Rouse the Ancients, and I really like this card. In fact, I like it so much, I have it right here. In fact, I have it and the foil Nourishing Emptiness. I literally opened these before I made this video. This card, I love this for Bravo. It's also very good for Brute decks. If you have a deck that can get a lot of power into your hand at one time, this card's great. If you pay 3, and if you can reveal attack action cards with 13 or more attack amongst them, so Brute, Prism, Guardian, you're going to attack for 7, go again. This thing's really good. It's also blue pitch. So, there's huge value in that card. So, you also have some equipment. Blood Drop Brocade is not very well played yet, but I honestly think it's pretty underappreciated because it has the ability to crack itself when you take damage. So if you have like defense reactions, like you're playing Warrior, you got a Steel Blade Shunt, you know, especially for budget decks, I actually think Blood Drop Brocade can be very good. If you have anything you can use on your opponent's turns when you take damage for 1, it's a pretty good card. So the Fabled for this set is the Great Library of Solana. Okay, I got lucky and I opened one. I was very, very happy. My friends both had opened a Fabled and I had not yet. One got the Heart of Fyendal, the other got Eye of Ophidia. I got lucky and got the Great Library. So now we're all on equal footing. It is actually a very good card. If you pull one, you can play it in a deck like Prism or Bolton. It's honestly quite good if you focus on the yellow pitch. But again, don't buy these sets just for the Fables. It's really not worth it. So, that was my video going over each set. I hope this gave you enough information. Again, to pick a set, the ultimate thing is pick a hero. If you like Dorinthia, buy Welcome to Rathe. You like Bolton, buy Monarch. Okay, you like Dash, buy Arcane Rising. And if you're still not sure, you know, and you want to go based on your, you know, what kind of style of play they have, I hope I kind of enlightened you a little bit. I will be very honest with you. I haven't played every deck, and I haven't played online as much as I would like to. I've entered 2 events and I have another one coming up in a few days. I'm very excited about that, but I'm still pretty new to this myself. So I'm trying to help you out as best as I can. I hope this cleared up a few things. I hope I helped you make a decision. And I hope you all have a good day. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. There is going to be a lot more content on the way. I also will be making, as I said, a video about Crucible of War, and I do want to have more videos to help new players get into this game. So if you're a new player, you've seen this, and you want to know something else, leave a comment about it. Ask me in the comments and I will deliver. The whole reason I'm getting this video out now, I was actually going to release it closer to Crucible and do all 4 sets, but somebody actually asked me to do this video and I already had it in my head, and so I decided, okay, I'm going to fast track that and do it now. So if you want to know anything, ask and you shall receive. I hope you all have a good one, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.